By late July, the coast had already given him more than he expected. A kiss he hadn't dared imagine. A friend who listened when he told the truth. An uncle who finally let silence crack into memory. But the scene never stopped at what it gave. It carried the past back with it, and left him facing what he tried to bury. This summer was not forever. It was only the stretch between what had broken and what had waited beyond the horizon. And before the tide could turn, there were still things he had to face. The anger of a friend, the weight of a mistake, and the truth of what it meant to stay when the world is already calling you back. This is Shoreline Secrets, Chapter 6, The Sea That Remembers. The phone buzzed against the table. Once, twice, a third time, before he gave in and picked it up. The voice on the other end came sharp, angry that he hadn't called back. It was Rosa, always Rosa. She didn't wait for him to explain. She filled the air herself. She said his name, Ben. And with it, the room shifted. The last day of school all over again. The moment he wanted to forget and couldn't. Rosa's voice over the phone. I spoke to him. He's fine, Jamie. Better than you think. He doesn't hate you. He's just confused. You don't get to carry it like you broke him. The name landed heavy. Ben. Confused, yes. Hurt, maybe. But not ruined. Not broken the way Jamie had feared. Jamie stayed quiet. He let Rosa's words carry the weight for him. She continued. And don't think I don't know about that kiss. The boy by the sea. What's his name? He said nothing. But Rosa didn't need an answer. She always found what he wasn't saying. Her tone softened after a moment. She reminded him results were still waiting, like a tide that could turn either way. Fingers crossed for Cornwall, Rosa said. The place is you, and you know it. He closed his eyes. The words felt like both a promise and a weight. And Jamie, Rosa continued, don't you dare ghost me again. The line went quiet, and in the hush that followed, he felt the sea pressing faintly through the window, a reminder that even silence was never empty. The day stretched long and bright, the kind of light that left nothing hidden. Jamie and Sam walked the cliffs together, the sea below restless, steady, like it already knew the things Jamie hadn't said. For a while, Sam let the silence carry them. Sam never rushed him. That was the difference. Where Rosa filled the space, Sam made room in it. And somewhere between the steps and the salt air, the memories slipped free. The last day of school, the last exam. Jamie waiting outside the hall, laughing with his friends. Then Ben blurting out a truth Jamie knew never coming. The words replayed now like a salt water in his throat. I like you. Ben's words replayed. The friends had turned sharp, their laughter caught in quick. Ben tried to laugh with them, but the sound broke halfway. Then came the look, the step back, the words that stung more than any fist. Don't touch me, not like that. That was the last word Jamie said to Ben. It was too much. The strike came before he thought, and with it, the silence that followed, louder than the laughter, louder than the bruised blooming on Ben's cheek. Jamie carried it still, like the sea carried its salt. Not washed away, not forgiving, just there. And besides Jamie, Sam said nothing, but his silence held steady, like the tide itself. The memory left Jamie raw, like skin rubbed too thin by salt and wind. He let it go into the air between them, and Sam didn't feel the silence, only matched his steps, steady as the tide itself. By the time the pass bent lower, Jamie's breathing had evened out. The cliffs gave way to the beach track, and the shed came into a view. One of Edward's old boards popped against the wall, its paint worn pale, the wood darkened by decades of salt. And the tail, almost hidden in the grain, two waves curled into each other. An old carving, shallow but deliberate. Jamie crouched, tracing the mark with his fingertip. The wood was rough, but the line still held, intertwined. Not one wave, not the other, together, or not at all. Sam knelt beside him, his shadow falling against the board. He didn't reach out, just looked, eyes steady where Jamie's hand lingered. "They meant it," Sam said. "You don't carve something like that unless you want it remembered." "Glad the letter found its place, though." "Better there than forgotten," Sam continued. The words pressed into Jamie's chest, heavier than the sea air. The letter held safe in Edward's keeping. The mark left in the open. One meant to be buried, the other carved deep enough to outlast silence. He let his hand fall away from the board, but the shape stayed with him. The curve of two waves bound in the same tide, waiting for someone else to see. From higher on the pass, a voice carried down through the salt air. "Boys, tea's ready." Jamie's great-uncle Edward had called. The sound of it broke the hush, gentle but firm, as if Edward knew exactly when to pull them back. Jamie and Sam turned from the shed, the mark still lingering in Jamie's chest, and started off the path toward the house. The kettle hissed as they stepped inside. Edward was already waiting at the table, cup set out, steam rising faint and steady. Beside them, a plate of scones, split and buttered, as if he knew tea alone would not be enough. He didn't ask where they had been. He only poured, pushed the plate toward them, and let the silence settle like something earned. The scrape of knife against porcelain, the soft thought of a cup set down, the kind of sounds that belong to any quiet evening, yet tonight they felt heavier, like a prelude towards waiting too long. For a moment, Jamie thought it would end there, but then Edward cleared his throat, and the sound of it was heavier than the sea. He told them of the summer long ago, when the boards were new, and the mark at the tail still sharp. Arthur was more than a friend, though they never said the word. It was his mother who ended the pretending, opening the door one night, finding them too close. The silence after, sharper than any shout. From then on, everything closed in. Arthur's parents began pressing harder. So did his own mother. Whispers of duty, of family. Talk of marriage came quicker than either boy could breathe. Arthur was the first to bend. His wedding came sudden, a choice that wasn't really his at all. Edward said it was for the best. It gave them both a way to keep living when the world offered no other. And then came his own wedding. By then, the pressure had its grip. A household already waiting, a child expected, the paths chosen for him long before he took the vows. But months later, Arthur came back, drunk, desperate, standing outside his door in the night. He asked Edward to run away, just the two of them. Edward looked at Arthur's hands. He said he could not. Too many lives had been bound by his by then. Too many eyes watching. Too many rules he already accepted. Arthur left without another word. The cups cooled between them, steam fading. And then Edward spoke again, lower now, as the words resisted leaving. The letter. It wasn't his. It was mine. I gave it to him. And somehow, Arthur must have kept it. All these years, until it found its way back. The words sat heavy between them. Not Arthur's. Edward's. Love written, handed over, and carried back to him long after it was too late. Jamie felt his chest tighten. Sam's gaze stayed on Edward. Steady, searching, as though willing him to say more. And Edward did. His voice shook at first, but then it steadied, like someone who had decided not to hide anymore. It was different then. Harder. The word itself was dangerous. We didn't dare speak it, not even to each other. So we let others choose for us, and they did. Marriage, children, duty, until there was nothing left to call ours. He lifted his eyes then, meeting them both across the table. But you've been given a different time. Don't waste it hiding. Don't bend the way we bent. Cherish what you find, even if it scares you, even if it costs you, because the cost of silence. Edward's hand brushed the rim of his cup, trembling just slightly. The cost never leaves you. The kitchen held its breath, steam fading to nothing. Jamie's eyes burned, but he kept them low, the weight of the words pressing deeper than shame. Sam was the one who broke the silence, his voice careful, warm. Maybe you'd like to visit him. Together. Edward nodded once, not quick, not ashamed, just steady. The kind of nod that carried a lifetime. The kettle had long gone quiet, but the sound of the sea filled the room instead. When Edward rose, he said nothing more, just gathered the plates with the steady hands of habits. Jamie excused himself soon after, the weight of the evening pressing heavier than the walls could hold. Jamie and Sam climbed the stairs together, Edward's words still heavy between them. The small room was warm with lamplight, the window cracked open just enough to let in the hush of the sea. A book lay face down, a jumper folded over the chair, the kind of traces that turned a borrowed space into something lived in. Jamie sat on the bed. Sam took the chair by the desk, turning it halfway so he faced Jamie. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt different now, not awkward, but filled with everything Edward had given them. The letter, the mark, love written, but carried too late. It hung between them, unspoken, but too close to ignore. Jamie said, "Do you think it was love back then?" Sam replied, "If it wasn't, why would he still be holding it now?" Jamie swallowed hard. The word itself felt heavier here. Not a joke, not a dare, but something worse keeping. Edward's voice returned in his mind. "Don't waste it hiding. Cherish what you find." Jamie lifted his eyes, breath unsteady. "I applied here. Film school. Results come in August." He twisted the blanket in his hands, forcing the rest out. "If I make it, it means staying. It means maybe we could have more than this summer." Sam leaned closer. His hand rested on Jamie's, steady, patient. It said more than words ever could. But Jamie wasn't done. The words pressed sharp in his chest. I love you. For a heartbeat, he feared he'd gone too far. But Sam's grip only tightened, his voice low, certain. I love you too. The words landed like tide against shore, not loud, not sudden, but inevitable. Jamie let out a breath he'd been holding. Sam didn't move away. He leaned in closer, their shoulders pressed, their foreheads brushing in the half-light. The distance between them was a breath, a heartbeat. And then the sound cracked through the hush, jolting them apart just enough. Jamie glanced down. The screen glowed in the dim light. Mum. For a long moment, he didn't touch it. The sea hummed through the open window, the weight of her name pulling heavier than the tide. Jamie lifted it. Sam lay back on the bed, watching without a word. Jamie crossed to the window, the cool air brushing his face as he raised the phone. Jamie, finally. I was starting to worry, his mum said. Her voice carried a steadiness he hadn't realized he missed. And yet, even from across the miles, it pressed heavier than he wanted to bear. Mum continued. School's lifted now. You just need to come back for the final words. After that, it's only waiting on results. The words sank into him like a tide pulling back. The end of one season. The beginning of a waiting. I spoke to Ben's mom. He's doing better. Don't call him, not yet. Not until you're back with me. We'll sort it out together. Jamie's chest tightened at the name. He glanced back at Sam on the bed, the silence between them holding steady. Jamie replied, Okay. I'll come next week to bring you home. It's time, love. The line went still. Jamie lowered the phone, the sea pressing in through the open window. From the bed, Sam had heard every word, the speaker louder than he expected. He rose without hesitation, crossed a small space, and wrapped his arms around Jamie from behind. The embrace was firm, steady, holding him against the window's light. No words, just a quiet promise of not letting go. This was Shoreline Secrets, Chapter 6. The Sea That Remembers. The next chapter will be the last. If this story had stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Your words help us carry these stories further. See you next time. Thank you.